Part 67. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 661. Sanji, a perverted cook, immediately went up to flatter Kuina diligently after seeing her. This made Zoro very unhappy. Almost didn't start a fight. It seems that these two guys are born with conflicting fates. Wei also took the opportunity to break up the fight and build a relationship with the strongest swordsman in the East China Sea, who she thought could very well help her get revenge. Enel was still sitting in the corner, watching the scene with interest. What a peaceful day, Enelu said to himself with a smile. He seemed to like this feeling. The East China Sea is such a good place. I heard that Nami's hometown is here. If you have time, go and take a look. Just like this, I quietly ate delicious food, drank fine wine, admired the blue sea outside the window, and from time to time looked at the funny stories happening among the boys and girls there. Enelu felt very happy. But the good times didn't last long. Not long after, the restaurant door was pushed open again. This time, a group of uninvited guests walked in, and they didn't look like good people. There was a guy among them who was picking his nose as soon as he came in. This made Enero frown and feel a little impatient. He still didn't know these people. After all, in terms of his identity, these people are just trash. How can he bother to get to know these ignorant guys? But Wei recognized it. I was also a little panicked, chasing soldiers. The people from the criminal company Baroque Works owned by Crocodile. Afro Mr. 5, Mr. 3. Gardeno. There are also a few who look like they are their younger brothers. There is no doubt that in Wei's eyes, these people are Crocodile's right-hand men and the real strong men. If they appear here, they must be here for you. Guest, would you like something to eat? Sanji still walked up to say hello in a very competent manner. Gardeno did not act very arrogant. After going to the New World, of course he understood that he was just a trash fish. But Mr. 5 Jamu looked very arrogant, and casually flicked the booger he had just grabbed at Sanji. There was a hint of embarrassment in Sanji's eyes, and he moved his body slightly to avoid the disgusting booger, and his tone was somewhat. He said impatiently, "Please don't make such a joke, guest." "I'm really sorry," Jim responded first, then looked past Sanji to Vivi, who was standing next to Zoro and Kuina not far away, with a cruel smile on his lips, and said, "We are not here to eat." "Yes, I'm here to find someone." "Find someone?" Sanji was stunned for a moment. "Your Royal Highness Princess Vivi, Mr. Crocodile is very worried about your safety and specially sent us to take you back to Alabasta. Please come with us." Jem looked at Vivi and said. Vivi didn't make any excuses at this time, because it was meaningless. She picked up the knife on the table, looked at Jem with hatred in her eyes and said, "Crocodile, this guy wouldn't be so kind. If you want to kill me, just do it." Although she said cruel words, Wei was thinking in her heart, how to escape from here. She is not a fool. She knows she can't beat her, but she still fights. At this time, Roronoa Zoro is looking down. He was looking at the disgusting booger on the steak he had just served. Yes, Sanji avoided the booger, but it happened to fall on Zoro's plate. This made Zoro very sad. "Damn, I hit a target." Gina looked at Zaran with a funny face, as if she was happy that Zaran was unlucky here. Sanji also reacted at this time, frowned and said, "You guys, I don't care who you are, if you want to bully our Barity clerk, you have to see if you have the qualifications." But before he finished speaking, Zaran suddenly said in a deep voice, "Hey, that Afro, 2372 belly. Give me the money now." Jem was stunned for a moment. If someone provoked him, he would just forget it. Others asked him for money. "Why?" Jem frowned slightly and said. "You idiot, you got your disgusting boogers on the steak I just ordered. I don't want to kill anyone today, so just pay me the money and forget about it." Zoro turned to look at Jim and said with a hint of evil in his eyes. "What a scary look." Jim smiled, then took out a few gold coins from his pocket and said, "I will compensate you." As soon as he finished speaking, he threw these gold belials towards Zoro. Zoro didn't think much about it and reached out to pick it up. But just at this moment, a cold light flashed through, and several gold baileys were cut open by the cold light and scattered on the ground. "Hey, Gina, you," Zoro looked at Kuina and complained very unhappily. But before he could finish his words, the gin bailey that fell on the ground exploded instantly. However, Jim seems to be worried about directly blowing up the restaurant on the sea, so it is not very powerful. After the smoke cleared, Kuina and Zoro had already distanced themselves from the explosion site. Sanji also protected Princess Vivi and was not injured. "You guy, are you a roadie and not an idiot? Can't you see that that bastard has bad intentions?" Gina scolded Sauron. Hateful, Zoro was getting angry at this time. He took out the saber from his waist, exerted force with his feet, and rushed towards the explosive head. Candle iron wall, Galdino raised his hand and swiped, and the low candle instantly condensed into a wall, blocking the distance between the two of them and Sauron. With a clang, the saber in Sauron's hand struck the candle wall, making a metallic collision sound. Didn't cut the candle open at all. What is this, devil fruit powers, Zoro thought with some surprise in his heart. The next second, a light flashed in his eyes. He stepped on his foot and pulled back a certain distance. At the same time, the candle wall exploded directly. Only the explosive head was seen. Is punching the candle wall. I don't want to cause trouble. Your Highness Princess Waiwei, can you please leave with us? Jem asked with an evil smile on his lips. Asshole, with a hint of irritation in his eyes, Sanji stepped forward and kicked the explosive head. Explosive head did not dodge, but raised his arm to parry. The moment the arm made contact with the kick, a violent explosion occurred again, directly blowing the unlucky guy Sanji away. "Sanji," Waiwei shouted worriedly. "So, you still have to resist," Jim said in a very happy mood. He, following the Baroque Work Club, was indeed right. He never expected that Baroque Working Group would be Lord Crocodile's subordinates. Now, Lord Crocodile is about to become the pirate emperor of the New World. Isn't his status also rising? In short, this guy Jem has been in a very happy mood recently. But before he could finish his words, a cold light flashed through, and Galdino raised his hand and created another wall of candles. Obviously his status is much higher than Jem, but he looks like he is a follower, not much at all. Sense of presence. It's useless, Jem said with a chuckle. But in the next moment, Gardino's wall of candles was directly cut in half. Before he could react, Jim felt pain in his chest, and with a trace of blood, he was sent flying out. "What kind of mess do you think can block my sword?" Guyuna said bravely. It seemed that she was more than a little stronger than Sauron. As she finished speaking, she withdrew her eyes from the afro-headed figure who was thrown out of the restaurant door, looked at Galdino and said, "If you want to block it, be more serious, idiot." Then, looking at the word Hedeo in Guyuna's hand, it exudes a sharp sword aura, and there is also killing intent in her eyes. "We are Sand Crocodile Croc," Galdino quickly spoke and said. "What crocodile shark, die?" Guyuna had no intention of listening at all. Without saying a word, she slashed out with her sword. "Candle," Galdino exclaimed. "Shuanjiu Udeo style white slash," Gina shouted softly, and directly killed Gardino and all the candles. Fortunately, with the candle to protect him, Gardino was not killed directly, but the figure also flew out of the restaurant. "So strong," Sanji looked at Kuina in surprise and murmured involuntarily. Princess Waiwei was also extremely excited, having killed Crocodile's right-hand man so easily. The strongest swordsman in the East China Sea is indeed very powerful. With her help, revenge seems to be just around the corner. Hey, Zoro, don't always be so weak. Isn't it too embarrassing for our Ishine dojo? Guyuna then put away her anger, turned to look at Saran with a smile and said. Zoro curled his lips in displeasure and said, I only used a knife. Several knives are the same. Anyway, you have never defeated me, Guyuna said happily. On the other side, Enilu, who was sitting in the corner, looked at Guyuna with some surprise. Is there such a talent in Donghai? Although he doesn't understand the swordsmanship and so on, but have you never eaten pork or seen pigs running? In their Warhammer pirates, there is the world's greatest swordsman. At the same time, his own level is here, and Enel is not without the swordsman. I have fought against each other, such as Foil Bista. So I still have a good eye. It can be seen that the young swordsman in front of me seems to have extraordinary potential in the way of swordsmanship. Maybe her current strength is not that good, but the potential is very strong. How can you join the navy with me? Guyuna said with a smile again. I didn't say I wanted to join the navy with you, Zoro retorted unceremoniously. After hearing this, Annalus shook his head with regret. It turned out that he was a person with a righteous heart and wanted to join the navy. Forget it, forceful melons are not sweet. But soon, there was a smile on his lips again. This matter was not over yet. Sure enough, just when Guyuna and others thought that this sudden farce was over, a tall man with a very cold face slowly walked in from the door. My subordinates are really grateful for your care. As soon as this man came in, he spoke in a very cold tone. Das, Bonus, Wei recognized this man at a glance. He was Crocodile's true confidant. Looks like they are the enemy again, Guyuna said a little unhappy. As a swordsman, she was straightforward and had no intention of talking nonsense. She exerted force with her feet, holding the word Wado in her hand, and slashed directly at Das Bonus. But Das Bonus had no intention of evading, and didn't even take a defensive stance, allowing Gina to slash him in the chest. However, this knife not only left no injuries, but even caused a lot of sparks. Guyuna felt a touch of surprise in her heart. Swordsman means nothing to me. You chose the wrong opponent, Bonus said very coldly. As he finished speaking, he kicked Guyuna directly on the chest. It was obviously a kick, but this kick brought a splash of blood. As if Guyuna was struck by a knife. Asshole, there was a hint of anger in Saran's eyes, and the three swords were unsheathed at the same time. Santoryu Yukaki, with a low shout, he brought up a strong wind under his feet and rushed towards Das Bonus at an extremely fast speed. Didn't you hear what I said? Bonus still refused to dodge, and the expression on his face did not change. He raised his arm, held Saran's three knives, turned around, and kicked Saran directly on the chest. Like Gina, Saran's chest was instantly opened and kicked out. Ignoring these two guys, Das Bonus looked at Wei with a very cold look and said, Wei, Master Wei, please leave here with us. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 662. As soon as Bonus finished speaking, Wei's eyes showed a little despair. But just then, a voice came. Do you think you won? Guyuna put one hand on the ground and stood up slowly. She was wearing plain white clothes, and her chest was already stained red by the blood from her wound. But it seemed that the injury was not very serious. Are you the helper invited by His Highness Wei? Bodyguard. You are really conscientious of your duties. You can just lie down and pretend to be dead, but I have no interest in killing you, Das Bones said softly. Princess Wei is not a princess. I have only known her for less than 10 minutes. I am too lazy to care about crocodiles and sharks, but don't think that this account can be settled like this. Guyuna held the word Hideo tightly in her hand and said with anger in her tone. It turns out that he is a nosy guy, so I have to teach you a lesson here. The most taboo thing in the sea is nosy, Bonus said coldly. Little did Bonus know that this was a tragedy caused by a booger. He simply thought that it was the Donghai people who were meddling in their own business here. After saying this, Bonus stepped on her foot, and the strong figure pounced directly on Gina. "Kill people," Bonus shouted in a low voice. He bent his arm, and the sharp blade appeared from under his skin. That's right, Bonus is the person with the ability to eat the quick slash fruit. His entire body can be turned into a blade, and as he develops his abilities, he can turn himself into a steel body in a true sense. In fact, his ability is quite powerful. It depends on how to develop it. If you can really train yourself to the quality of a famous sword like the 12 skills of the supreme great industry. On the sea, there were very few people who could hurt him. And it is indeed rare to have both offense and defense. Guyuna tightened her grip on Hideo Yaiwen and slashed out towards Bonus. Sure enough, the blade that struck him set off a spark. "Zoro," Guyuna shouted in a low voice. Learn. Roronoa Zoro had already gotten up at this time. He is one of those little strong types who can't be killed. It seems that as long as his head is not twisted off, he will not be killed even if he is seriously injured. Three-tool style dance. Sauron held a knife in his mouth, shouted low, and launched an attack on Bonus with Kuina. It's not a charged blow, a decisive blow like this. On the contrary, every time he came into contact with Bonus, the sword flashed and the next set of movements changed. It was so sensitive that even though Bonus made several attacks back and forth, the two of them just managed to dodge it. Enel is still like a transparent person, sitting in the corner, holding a wine glass in his hand, drinking wine and enjoying the show. Combined attack skills? This is rare. It seems that they are swordsman partners who have a good understanding of each other. Enel raised his brows slightly and thought with a smile on his lips. Combination attack technique can also be regarded as a kind of combat skill, but few people among the people will combine attack with anyone. Especially pirates, almost no one likes it and tries it. But the Navy is different. In Eniro's impression, the Navy is particularly good at using combined attack techniques. Especially the Vice Admiral of the Navy. Taken one-on-one, although it cannot be said to be weak, it can definitely not be called strong. It can only be said that it is not enough compared to the superiors, but more than enough compared to the inferiors. For real top players, the threat is not great. But the vice admirals of the Navy are particularly good at combined attack skills. When two vice admirals join forces, the threat posed by them will skyrocket. What is even more exaggerated is that the combined attack skills practiced by the Navy seem to be more powerful the more people there are. It is far from comparable to ordinary combined attack skills such as two-person attack or three-person attack in the restricted eyes of the sea. Of course, this also depends on tacit understanding and cooperation. The better the tacit understanding and cooperation, the greater the power. This is also the reason why the demon-slaying order fleet is led by 5 lieutenant generals and can still be feared on the sea without the deployment of the most powerful generals, right? After all, as long as they don't meet that kind of perverted top master, if the 5 lieutenant generals join forces, anyone can fight on the sea. At this time, Kuina and Sauron seemed to be using a combined attack technique. The two had an extraordinary tacit understanding, and the pace of the fight was also very fast. Guyuna seemed to be the main attacker. Her sword was powerful and heavy, unlike ordinary female swordsmen who relied on agility to win. On the contrary, Roronoa Zoro's style of play at this time was extremely sensitive, and he had no intention of stalemate. He kept giving Kuina a sense of support. He doesn't need to attack too much, he just needs to block the attack of Rhythm and Bonus. Leave the rest to Gina. In just a few moments, the three of them fought hundreds of times, and the entire restaurant was filled with the sounds of swords and steel clashing. Sanji, who had been bombed once, also took Wei Wei with him and wanted to go upstairs. This is a ship. They are controlling the front. You can't escape. I will take you upstairs to find that bastard old man, he might be able to help you leave. Of course Boss Jaffa also knew what was going on downstairs at this time, but he did not show up. Unlike Sanji and other reckless novices, although he has withdrawn from the Grand Line for a long time, he is still very clear about the name of Sand Crocodile. In particular, in the New World recently, the Warhammer pirates have not made much movement, and the other two pirate emperors are also quiet. Therefore Crocodile is the most popular. How could he not know? It is even clearer that with his own melons and 2 dates, he cannot afford to offend Crocodile. Even if others are in the East China Sea, it is still extremely easy for Crocodile to kill them. It's not like they came to the East China Sea to grab territory and kill people. Even the world government can't control it. That's why he was upstairs, pretending not to know what was going on. The result was good. This guy Sanji really led people directly to him. But at the moment when Sanji was about to go upstairs, Zoro held Das Bones' arms with 2 knives, and at the same time lowered his waist to free up the position. In an instant, Das Bones' chest was wide open. However, this guy didn't feel panic, he still looked calm, as if he was very confident in his steel frame. Shuanjiu Yudeo Flo Yuxin, Gina shouted violently, said a word in her hand, brought out a stream of light, and slashed towards Das Bonus' chest with a knife. Bonus's indifferent expression also changed for the first time. Cutting iron, Bonus exclaimed. He never expected that a rural place like the East China Sea could produce swordsmen who could cut iron. A smile appeared on the corner of Gina's lips. Steel and iron bones, so what? My sword can break steel. It was too late, but in just a moment, Kuina's blade struck Das Bonus's chest. However, no blood spatter appeared. The scene of ejaculation. Still a clang sound. Impossible. Zoro was also shocked at this time. Guyuna also had a look of disbelief on her face. Zanti, her skills and swordsmanship are indeed enough to achieve this step. Before, she did not use this power just to be able to kill with one blow at this critical moment. But, why? Failed. No, it didn't fail, and I didn't make a mistake. Logically speaking, this knife can break steel. However, it did not cut off the steel and iron bones of the man in front of me. In the final analysis, he is just a frog in the well. Bonus released his arms holding Sauron's slash, and let the slash fall on him without moving at all. Domineering, Sanji's movements stopped at the entrance of the stairs, and he murmured with a shocked look on his face. Domineering, Wei was a little surprised and didn't know what Sanji was talking about. Is this domineering? Gina also felt a bit of surprise in her heart. Sanji knew about haki, but he had never seen it. He was ostracized in the Germa kingdom at the time, and he was also keen on cooking for his mother, so he had not studied it. However, she still recognized it. As for Kuina, she once heard her father, Kao's hero, talk about haki. But for some reason, Kao's hero did not teach Kuina haki. Yes, that blow that can cut through iron was Das Bonus used his domineering power to resist. In the New World, Das Bonus was not very powerful, even after the remnants of the Big Mom pirates joined Crocodile. He was the former number 1 after the first battle, his status quickly declined. However, Crocodile likes Bonus, a loyal subordinate. It can even be said that Crocodile still only trusts Bonus. Pero and others have not yet obtained Crocodile's complete trust. Therefore, he also worked hard to cultivate Bonus. Bonus's growth did not disappoint him, but he was still not strong. But for these people in the East China Sea, Bonus is definitely the strongest opponent I have ever seen. Bonus looked at the waiter Sanji with some surprise and said, it seems that you may not be simple, you can actually recognize show domineering power. The moment he finished speaking, he seemed to move several times faster. He raised his fists with both arms and punched Sauron twice on the chest. In these 2 attacks, he seemed to deliberately show off his domineering power, but instead failed to use his abilities. The heavy punch hit Zoro so hard that blood spilled from the corners of his mouth. The figure couldn't bear the force and was knocked away in the blink of an eye. The moment the two punches landed, Bonus exerted force on his ankle, spun half a circle on the spot, and kicked out with a high whip. This kick went straight to Guyuna's head. Dina's reaction speed was a little faster. Maybe Zoro was attacked in front, so she could cope with it to some extent. He held Wado Ikemonji to his side and resisted the kicking attack. But it was only for a moment. The powerful kicking power and arm domineering force instantly defeated her resistance, and the tall figure was swept away like a cannonball. "Dust cut," Bonus shouted in a low voice. Throwing his arms forward in the air, several slashes erupted from his fingertips, directly cutting the stairs in front of Sanji into wood slag. He is a very cautious person. He only wants to complete the tasks assigned to him by Lord Crocodile and does not want to cause unnecessary trouble. The blond man with curly eyebrows in front of him didn't make any impression on him at all. But after he recognized Haki, Bonus had to think more. The iconic curly eyebrows are also famous in the New World. They belong to the Vinsmoke clan of the Warhammer pirates. Perhaps the probability is very small, but Bonus thinks that there is no need to cause more trouble. "Please hand over Princess Wai to us," Bonus said softly, and looked at Sanji. Sanji blocked Wai behind him, lit a cigarette, and said in a very pretentious manner, "It is a gentleman's duty to let a lady encounter risks." Failed. In other words, "Do you also want to mind your own business?" Bonus asked in a cold tone. Although he didn't want to cause trouble, if it goes against Lord Crocodile's will, Bonus will kill him no matter who the person in front of him is. He is so loyal, so Crocodile Darke liked him very much. On the other side, Enelu looked helplessly at the mess in front of him. His body was covered with wine, but fortunately, he avoided the soup of the meal. And in front of her, the table had been overturned, and Guyuna's embarrassed figure was covered by the tablecloth, squirming. When she opened the tablecloth, Guyuna had an angry look in her eyes, and her body was covered with messy food. "Soup, very unlucky." "Asshole," Guyuna cursed and then prepared to continue the challenge without admitting defeat. But just when she was about to stand up, a hand pressed on her shoulder. "In my opinion, you can't beat him," Enelu said with a smile. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 663. "Who are you?" Guyuna looked at the person behind her with some surprise. Before, this person was clearly sitting here, but she didn't notice it at all. This battle has been going on for some time, and most of the diners have already fled in panic. But this guy is still sitting here? "My name is Enel," Enelu said with a smile on his lips. Enero, Guyuna had some doubts in her heart. This name sounded so familiar. She had heard it somewhere, but for a moment, she couldn't remember it. Or maybe she didn't think about it at all. "So what if I can't beat you? If you don't try your best, you have to admit defeat." "That's not my style," Guyuna shook off Enelu's hand and said. "Yeah," Enelu had a hint of appreciation in his eyes and said with a smile, "That's right. If you don't try your best, how can you admit defeat?" Guyuna looked at this incomprehensible guy strangely, and then she didn't say anything, and was ready to continue her attack. However, Enelu said, "But this matter concerns me. The mission should almost come to an end here. After all, now I can't eat or drink while continuing to watch a show." "Your mission?" Guyuna had a look of alertness in her eyes. Just now, the Iron Man opened his mouth to do tasks and shut up to do tasks. Now, it sounds like this guy named Enelu is an accomplice of that Iron Man? Don't get me wrong, these bastards and I are not companions, Anilu said softly with a gentle smile on his lips. Trash fish, Guyuna looked at the person in front of her in surprise. Was her tone too loud? If the person just now was considered a trash, then who was she? A salted fish defeated by a trash? A trash? Gina didn't even know what to say. On the other side, the weapon in Bonus's hand once again brought out a domineering force, and he was about to attack Sanji. At this moment, a voice that sounded very gentle came from a distant corner. Her Royal Highness Princess Waiwei, please come to me and I will protect your safety. Waiwei, Sanji, and Bonus turned their heads at the same time and looked in the direction of the sound. There, sitting a somewhat funny man. He was wearing a pair of black sunglasses and flashy beach clothes. He was wearing a shirt and big pants, and standing next to him was the female swordsman who had just been beaten away by Bonus. The funny thing is that the female swordsman was covered with liquid at this time, while the man in sunglasses was covered with liquid. Red wine. No matter how you look at it, it's unreliable, right? Bonus didn't recognize who this guy was at first glance. After all, there was a huge gap between his image and the image of Enel on the sea. But he was also a little surprised. Why didn't he find out? Is there such a person in the far corner? Is his presence too low? Waiwei was also surprised. Isn't this person the guest who talked to me before? Sure enough, he knows his identity. Although Bonus was confused in her heart, but I don't want to get into trouble at this time. Since it's so troublesome to take them away, why not just kill them all here? A fierce look flashed in his eyes, and with a strong movement of his feet, the figures rushed towards Sanji and Waiwei. Past. Waiwei was shocked, and she didn't care so much at this time. Although she didn't know who the guest was, it didn't look like she was with Bonus. Sanji is really interesting. He actually stood in front of Waiwei and kicked out, as if he was trying to stop Bonus. The result was naturally very sad, and he was kicked out by Bonus, with a trace of blood on his chest. After kicking Sanji away, Bonus didn't move slowly. He used his strength again, accelerated his figure, and rushed towards Waiwei. Didn't I say that her safety is protected by me? While the figure was accelerating, Bonus suddenly heard these words in his ears. There was surprise in his eyes, and he didn't even react. There was a sharp pain in his waist, and then a powerful force, spread out from the waist. Unable to resist anything at all, Bonus was directly carried away by this powerful force, and crashed into the bar of the restaurant. At this time, everyone present was stunned. Out of sight? I couldn't see how this guy suddenly appeared next to Bonus, and I couldn't see clearly how he knocked that Bonus away. Guyuna was extremely shocked, so strong. Vaguely, she seemed to have seen a flash of lightning just now. This guy, here, there is overwhelming power. Waiwei also stood still at this time, looked at Enelu in surprise, and asked, "Who are you?" "My name is Enel." Enelu still smiled gently, with the corners of his mouth raised slightly. "Alni Road." Waiwei murmured something first, and then seemed to think of something. But before she could speak, the strong figure of Bonus staggered up from the ruins of the bar, and said with anger in his eyes, "Why do people like you appear in the East China Sea?" Thunderous Enero. He didn't recognize him at that moment, but at this moment Enel introduced himself and got kicked. If he, Bones, still couldn't recognize him, he wouldn't have to go to the New World to hang out with Crocodile Boss. Thundering Enero? Why does this name sound so familiar? Zoran also got up from the corner and whispered. At this time, Gina finally remembered why the three words Anilu sounded so familiar. You are a member of the Warhammer Pirates. The Thunderous Enero has a bounty of 1.197 million belly, Gina said with a look of shock in her eyes. The gentle smile on the corner of Anilu's mouth looked a little evil at this time, and she said softly, "It's me. The bounty is 1.197 million baileys." Everyone in the restaurant was shocked at this time. After the Warhammer pirates defeated the Whitebeard pirates and ruled the New World, the bounty of each member was it has soared a lot. Those with a bounty of tens of millions can only be considered as minions in the Warhammer pirates. There are tens of millions of pirates everywhere on the Avalon Pier. Those with a bounty of over 100 million can barely do it. Chiang can be a small cotter, right? And most of the big cotters like Enero are worth more than 1 billion. To the people of Donghai, this is simply a superstar. In the eyes of the people of Donghai, the bounty can have a tens of millions is already quite powerful. He can be called the overlord of the East China Sea. What about Creek? The bounty is only more than 10 million, and he is running rampant in the East China Sea. All. As a result, today I can see the true God. The bounty is 1.197 million. Just this fraction of 97 million is enough to defeat all the pirates in the East China Sea. And the Warhammer Sea Thieves, he belongs to the Warhammer Pirates. The most powerful pirate group in the world today is a super large pirate group that even the Navy headquarters, known as the Army of Justice, has nothing to do with them. Standing among the pirates, the most powerful pirate group. Although I couldn't recognize Enelu, there is no doubt that Enelu's name is also famous in the East China Sea. No, it should be said that the cotters of the Warhammer pirates are famous in the world and everyone knows them. Everyone in Vivi was dumbfounded. There was Crocodile on the front foot, and the Warhammer pirates appeared on the back foot. Are you so important? Originally, she wanted to go to Enelu's side and accept shelter, but now Wai Wei didn't dare to act rashly. What to do? Wai Wei asked with some fear. She was instinctively afraid of the big pirate with a bounty of 1.197 million belly. She felt that it was a little difficult to breathe. Nothing, please don't get me wrong, I just want to protect you from harm. Enelu said with a smile. Bonus said with annoyance in his eyes, Enelu, I don't care why you came to the East China Sea or why you appeared here. Nefertali Wai Wei is K. Lord Lockdale named the person he wanted, if you. May I have your name? Enelu looked at Bonus and asked. Bonus felt like he was being teased. Although he was even more angry, he dared to show off in front of other people, but he really didn't dare to show off in front of Enelu. So his tone became a little deeper, but he still said Bonus, Das Bones. Yeah? Das Bones, you don't need to bring up Crocodile in front of me. To be honest, he is not qualified, Sand Crocodile, Yonko. That's because our hammer master gave it to him so that he could be such a Yonko. We, the Warhammer pirates, don't want to pay attention to you, so that you can be cool in the new world. Don't get this wrong, Enelu said in a very rude tone. Bonus had a domineering power in his hands, and he looked like he was about to get angry. But the next moment, a flash of lightning plasma passed directly by his ear. In front of everyone's sight, this plasma penetrated the wall of the restaurant and shot straight into the sea. The next second, the sea surface was exploded, setting off several huge waves and spreading out. The huge restaurant was swayed by the wave. If my Lord Orgrim hadn't said that Crocodile did pretty well in the New World, you would be dead now, Enelu said with an evil smile on his lips. His powerful attack power shocked everyone present. The Sauron people were all dumbfounded, and seemed to understand the meaning of what Bones had just called them, frogs in the well. I have never seen such a powerful person in the East China Sea. There is nothing wrong with being called a frog in a well. By the way, Princess Vivi has been spotted by my Lord Orgrim. If Crocodile wants to do anything, ask him to go to Avalon in person, please see Lord Hammer, and have an interview with Lord Hammer. Enelu walked slowly to Bonus' side, patted him on the shoulder and said. Bonus' face was gloomy and uncertain, with a touch of anger in his heart. He wanted to take action here, kill Enelu, kill that Princess Wai Wei. But he knew that it wouldn't work. He was no match for Enelu at all. Perhaps it only took one breath, or even less time, for Enelu to kill him. Powerful, overwhelmingly powerful, crushing power. Previously, even if we knew that the Warhammer pirates were extremely powerful in the New World, their power was so great that even Lord Crocodile had to be the first to visit after entering the New World. However, at that time, Bonus had not faced the cotters of the Warhammer pirates directly. Now, in the East China Sea, he had faced them. The pressure he endured made him dare not act rashly. "I will report this matter completely to Lord Crocodile," Bonus said in a cold voice. It seemed like he said a harsh word, and then left here quickly. "Shame, shame." Enel turned around and looked at his back, a little funny. "Are you trying to scare me? Crocodile counts. What is this?" If Master Hammer hadn't seen him as useful, Enelu thought he could have killed Crocodile. In fact, not to mention, there are several powerful cotters in the Warhammer pirates. If released, they are really no weaker than Crocodile, a guy who has not yet secured the throne of the four emperors. Even stronger. But at this time Enelu also felt a little difficult to deal with. His mission is to protect and keep an eye on Princess Weiwei. But this mission also has a prerequisite detail, which is to make the subjugated princess suffer more, and temper her temper. Experience the suffering in the world and so on. Now, how to do this? Enel also didn't expect that Crocodile's people would chase him so fast. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 664. Eternal Night Sea Avalon. At this time, we were on a remote coast. Orgrim is standing here, moving his body as if he is warming up. Not far away, 7 or 8 people were tied up in front of him. They were all tied up, and their bodies were curled up into a ball. With a cloth stuffed in his mouth, he couldn't say a word, but his eyes were full of begging for mercy. If you take a closer look, you will find that these embarrassed guys are actually somewhat famous in the New World. Some of them are powerful pirates. The most powerful one even has a bounty of over 500 million. Orgrim is doing warm-up exercises here. Next to her was Monet, the little secretary. She was holding a notebook in her hand and was reporting something to Orgrim. As of 3 days ago, the Navy has added 3 more branch bases in the New World. Construction has already begun. Admiral Kuzin of the Navy headquarters is the person in charge of supervising the construction. The Whitebeard pirates and the naval force led by Porosalino collided again, but both sides maintained a certain degree of restraint and failed to turn into a larger conflict. Little Lord, Lord Doflamingo said that he had found information about the dark fruit and was searching for it with all his strength. Monet reported to Orgrim one by one what happened in the recent period. Orgrim's warm-up movements also stopped at this time, and he picked up the warhammer standing next to him, a little curious. Asked, "Is there something going on with Doflamingo?" After hearing Orgrim's inquiry, Monet left, opened the briefing, and said, "Yes, Master Doflamingo found information about the dark fruit from the dark world. It seems that it is in the New World. People are being sent to look for. Well, it's important for him to put in more effort," Orgrim said softly. Then, holding the warhammer in his hand, he walked slowly towards the people kneeling by the beach. He ripped off the cloth in one person's mouth, and that person immediately crying, Master Chui, please spare me once, I won't dare to do it again." As a human being, the most important thing is to be responsible, admit when you make a mistake, and stand upright when you are beaten. You said, "What do I lack from you?" Judging from your position, you can earn nearly 1 billion Baileys from the Warhammer pirates every year. Counting the miscellaneous benefits of Avalon, it is enough for your family to live a very comfortable life. Why do you have to make me angry? Woolen cloth. Orgrim reached out and patted his head, and said in a very light tone, "Mr. Chui, I am really obsessed with it. I don't dare to do it anymore, not anymore. Please spare me this time. I am old and young," the guy cried out in fear. "Don't worry, I won't give you a seat this time. We in Avalon are really becoming more and more civilized. Your family members will not be unlucky with you. In 2 years, you embezzled nearly 200 UN from me. Hundreds of millions, Task, you are really brave enough, Orgrim said with some humor. The man in front of him is not a powerful cotter. He doesn't even play an important role in the Warhammer Pirates or in Avalon. He is just maintaining the order of merchants at the port. He is just a minor official. The power in his hand is nothing more than scheduling merchant ships to enter the port. But just such a person can collect 20 billion belly in 2 years. This is the kind of person we are talking about, who is a petty official but is extremely corrupt. We can also see how big the Warhammer Pirates and Avalon cake is now. I really don't dare to do it anymore. I will pay it back, I will pay it all back, double the amount, the strong man cried. Do you think I am missing your 20 billion people? Orgrim smiled at first, and then said with a cold face, Orgrim, treat you well. There are many people like you in the docks and ports around the world, who can earn a lot of money every year, 1 billion belly. Only I, Avalon, can be so generous and rich. I give you so much profit sharing to make Avalon better, and to let everyone know that I, the Warhammer Pirates, never treat our own people badly. We, the Warhammer Pirates, are not short of money, but I tell you, you can take what I give you, and you can't rob or steal what I don't give you. Master Chui, give me a chance, I really, the strong man cried and wailed. But Orgrim had already raised the warhammer in his hand. The next second, the warhammer fell, and the strong man's head exploded like a watermelon. White and red splashed all over the floor. Before his headless corpse could fall down, Orgrim swung the warhammer in his hand again. This blow had a more unrestrained feeling. Just like playing golf, he swung this guy's body into the sea. The warhammer seemed to feel Orgrim's will. In the blink of an eye, it became hot, burning away the blood stains on it. Although the body was beaten into the sea. But at this time, the ground was still in a mess. Monet didn't care about this, and walked very calmly not far behind Orgrim, and continued to report the world government has mobilized 700 billion belly in the Golden City. Mr. Tetsalo spent 3 days, all this Bailey was washed and returned. Get me a cigar, Orgrim waved. Monet smiled helplessly, took out a cigar from his handbag, bit it on his mouth first, lit it, took it out and handed it to Orgrim. Orgrim looked at this little girl in surprise. You little girl, you are getting more and more courageous. Orgrim stretched out his hand and took out the cigar. Monet smiled and said, Isn't this to better serve you, Mr. Hammer? Don't let Stussy find out, otherwise you and I will be doomed, Orgrim joked with a smile. He said it as if he really had something to do with Monet. Monet nodded with a slightly blushing face, but he was thinking in his heart, if Queen Stussy cares about this, there is no way I can appear next to you, Lord Hammer, okay. Monet knew very well that he posed no threat to Queen Stussy at all. It is precisely because of this that the Queen doesn't care about her at all. Slowly exhaling a puff of smoke, Orgrim asked, when I was in Marijoya, those 5 old guys said they would only invest 200 billion belly for the first time. How come it increased to 100 billion? In my opinion, it should be because the benefits of Golden City are really unexpected, right? We originally budgeted that in the first quarter, Golden City's total revenue would reach 3 trillion, which would be a good start. However, judging from Golden City's current reports, in the first quarter, the total revenue would be, maybe it can reach 15 trillion belly, which is already 5 times more than our budget. In terms of profit sharing, excluding expenses and dividends to the world government, Golden City can earn us at least 5 trillion belly this quarter. In terms of annual income, the net profit in our hands can even reach nearly with 20 trillion belly. The world government will naturally receive relevant reports. Isn't it true that they are more determined about the potential and market confidence shown by the Golden City? Monet said. The Golden City can earn Orgrim 20 trillion belly a year, pure profit. This really makes Orgrim a little excited. I think at the beginning, he wanted to get free fans in the North Sea. In the platinum and lead business, they pieced together several trillions of belly in the end. In the end, they made a lot of money, and the Warhammer pirates were truly on the road to getting rich. Now, just a Golden City, it can bring in nearly 20 trillion yuan in revenue every year. This is only the first year. In the future, it may be able to increase even more. Even with the expansion of major legions and the nationalization of pirates in Avalon and Evernight Sea, Beckman is spreading a lot of benefits again. Recently, he is planning to popularize a comprehensive free education system for children of military personnel. The Warhammer pirates are still not short of money. Orgrim exhaled smoke from his mouth and said with a smile, this guy Teezero is really a good money maker. Recently, Golden City is preparing for its first world tour. This tour will invite celebrities and dignitaries from all over the world, striving to make this event a benchmark and leader in the industry, and completely secure Golden City as the world's #1 entertainment city. In his position, Mr. Tetzalo seems to want to sing in person, Monet said with a smile. Orgrim was holding a warhammer in his hand and a cigar in his mouth. He walked towards another prisoner who was kneeling on the beach. He smiled as he walked. That guy has had a dream of being a singer since he was a child. But to be honest, his singing is quite good. I heard it when I was in Golden City. Maybe he will become popular this time. There's no need for Mr. Tetzalo to become popular, right? He is already a big shot, and those stars who sing well are just insignificant guys in front of him, Monet shrugged and said with a smile. As a human being, you must have a dream. What if it comes true? Orgrim said with a smile, then pulled the strip of cloth from the prisoner's mouth in front of him and continued, really, bounty of 520 million baileys, Sea Wolf Dog Crandall. Lord Orgrim, I am willing to join your Warhammer pirates and become your loyal lackey. I really have no intention of provoking your majesty. I am very sorry. Please forgive me once, Klander said quickly. He was filled with regret at this time. He shouldn't have had so many expectations and ambitions. He dreamed of challenging the Warhammer pirates and Orgrim, the king of the night. Speaking of which, you guys have been cool in our Evernight Sea for a while, right? You are indeed a wolf dog. Your nose is very sensitive. We have caught you so many times, but we have never caught you, ha ha ha. Is it exciting to rob my caravan? Orgrim asked with an evil smile. The Eternal Night Sea is the territory of the Warhammer pirates. However, other pirates are not prohibited from entering, and there are no such rules. Avalon, as the leader of the Warhammer pirates, isn't the base camp still open to the public, where pirates from all walks of life can come and sit? Is it the largest pirate paradise in the New World? There are so many pirates, there will naturally be people who want to cause trouble, and this Klander is one of them. And there are countless people like him. Every year, the Warhammer pirates kill hundreds of these pirates. In fact, in the New World, the one with the strongest power to clean up pirates is the Warhammer pirates. The Navy and the like are simply not enough. However, this Klander has some abilities. He has escaped the pursuit of the Warhammer pirates several times, and his nose is sharper than that of a wolf dog. But after all, he is just a small person and has no influence. Previously, no one really takes him seriously. But if you don't take him seriously, this guy is really disgusting. He grabs a caravan or something on Orgrim's territory every 2 days. Until not long ago, this guy was unlucky and bumped into the hands of the Sphinx, who was returning from the Golden City. After being chased by the Sphinx for more than half a month, he finally managed not to run away. He caught him, beat him up, and happily brought him back to Avalon. Exchanged some pocket money with Orgrim. Makes the Sphinx so happy. I was wrong, Lord Orgrim. I shouldn't have had the idea of provoking your authority. I shouldn't have come to challenge the Warhammer pirates. I think I still have some abilities and capabilities. If I can, Crandile quickly explained. I have to say that this guy did a pretty good job and kept his attitude very low. But Orgrim had no interest in him at all. There was no headshot or anything like that. He swung the Warhammer in his hand, and in a golfing posture, he hit the man directly on the chest with the hammer. Crandile's eyeballs were immediately blown open by the collapsing pressure in his chest. His figure was like a meatball, and he was hit by Orgrim and flew hundreds of meters into the sea, causing a splash of water. Nice shot, Monet said with a smile. Ha 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 ha, love sports, Orgrim laughed. This is a serious multi-person sport. His laughter made the other prisoners feel terrified and terrified. Evil and powerful, perhaps because of Orgrim recently, Mew's temper is so good that many people in the sea have forgotten what kind of existence Orgrim is. Suddenly something has come up and needs to be dealt with urgently. Sorry to all the bosses, it will be 3 days today. Updated, will be added later. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 665. After knocking the sea wolf dog away with one hammer, Orgrim put down the warhammer, took out the cigar from his mouth, blew out a puff of smoke and asked, what are the movements of the Revolutionary Army recently? Gangplank found their base camp, Brother Baradai. The relationship between Orgrim, the world government, and the 5 old stars is getting closer and closer, and it is even very likely that they will become one and the same. Therefore, Orgrim didn't have a good impression of the Revolutionary Army at all. Anyway, he had no good impression of the Revolutionary Army from beginning to end. Previously, the Revolutionary Army was secretly supported by Orgrim and trained to suppress the world government. There is a bit of a feeling of raising the bandits and respecting themselves. After all, the Revolutionary Army is the fundamental threat to the world government, not the pirates. The stronger the Revolutionary Army becomes, the more the world government will need to rely on him as a trustworthy pirate. This is proven to be the case. Although they have never revealed anything, if the world government is as stable as a mountain, it is impossible for the 5 old stars to casually cooperate with Orgrim so much before. It's even long past time for the Navy to take a big step. These effects are all implicit. Now, the relationship between Orgrim and the world government is likely to become more substantial. Therefore, he must keep the Revolutionary Army under control and not let the situation exceed his control. If we say that Orgrim's previous attitude towards the Revolutionary Army was support the invaders and respect yourself. Now, Orgrim's attitude towards the Revolutionary Army has begun to change to the aspect of usable knives. Orgrim had never thought about wiping out the Revolutionary Army, and there was no need to do so. It's even less in his interest. If in the future, the Kashgrove family really has a seat in the Holy Land Marijoa, then Orgrim's attitude towards the current world government will inevitably change. After all, the butt determines the head. Now, he sits in the position of a pirate, and of course he hopes that the world government can maintain its long-lasting corruption while maintaining its rule. When he reaches the top of the world government, he naturally hopes that the world government can eliminate more ills that are not conducive to their interests and save themselves. Lest this ship really sinks. Then all his previous investment would be in vain. The Revolutionary Army is the future, the knife used for this kind of self-rescue. There are many conflicts and problems within the world government, and it is simply impossible to resolve them gently from within. Therefore, transferring internal conflicts to the outside is a routine operation. The Revolutionary Army is this outside. At the same time, the Revolutionary Army is also a knife hanging over the heads of countries around the world. No one knows whether the Revolutionary Army will suddenly start a revolution in their own country. Once this happens, the strong support of the world government will be the last hope of the royal families. Therefore, the presence of the Revolutionary Army will also help the world government to control each participating country and strengthen its control. That's right, although Orgrim felt that Lord Im was acting dictatorially and violated the covenant of the 20 kings. But it doesn't matter, he doesn't reject this at all. If he can intervene in the operation of the world government with the 5 old stars, there is no doubt that he will stand on the side of the 5 old stars to further dictatorship and strengthen the world government's control over all countries. Strength of dominance. At that time, it will not only be the Revolutionary Army that will be used as knives, but also the pirate forces under him will be used as knives. Whichever country dares to disobey, the world government can't do anything on the surface. The power of Orgrim's men can teach this country a lesson and loot them every 2 days. Wash them until they are obedient. If it doesn't work, they will pull out the royal family and kill them all, and replace them with obedient ones. Anyway, Orgrim has no problem at all doing things that are inconvenient for the world government to do. Perhaps, this is one of the reasons why the 5 old stars are willing to share Marijoyo with Orgrim. Orgrim needs the world government, and the world government needs Orgrim. Complicity, sometimes it's that simple. The top power of the world government is here. If Orgrim wants to enter, it will share the power of the 5 old stars. If you don't want to cause any gaps and rifts between them, then this is the best way. Just make this power cake bigger and bigger. In this way, even if Orgrim went in and shared some power, the power in the hands of the 6 of them not only did not shrink, but actually expanded. Then everyone is enjoying themselves, isn't it? Closer to home, the Revolutionary Army is now developing very well, like a prairie fire. But in fact, Orgrim has already put shackles on them. For example, in terms of financial revenue, part of the economic lifeline of the Revolutionary Army is controlled by Orgrim. In terms of arms, over the years, the technology of Orgrim's arms factory has become better and better, and the arms produced have always been at the forefront of the market, firmly grasping the high end and quality. The Revolutionary Army was also restricted by Orgrim to a great extent in this matter. Although they are developing rapidly, as long as Orgrim is willing, he can immediately make them live a miserable life. No money for pay, no guns for uprising. But Orgrim has never underestimated Durag. This guy must have been aware of these problems, and he had even been aware of them a long time ago. Therefore, he will definitely make preparations and responses. It is absolutely impossible for anyone, especially Durag and the Revolutionary Army, to truly trust the pirates. It was even more impossible to put all his wealth and life in Orgrim's hands. Then there's something wrong with your brain. Therefore, Orgrim needs more chips that can check and balance the Revolutionary Army. Well, first of all, we need to find their leader. The Revolutionary Army has been pursued by the CP agency of the world government for so many years. It is a very rigorous organization. The base camp where they are located has not been found by anyone else so far. Orgrim knew that the base camp of the Revolutionary Army was on the White Earth Island, Baradigo. But knowing this name is of no use. He also knows the name Rafdru, but he can't find it. Baradigo and Punkhasad are existences of the same nature. It is an island without a magnetic field. Therefore, it is impossible to find this island with a recording pointer or something, and there will be no guidance. So even if it is in the New World, it may even be not far from the Evernight Sea. But if you want to find this island, under normal circumstances, you can only try your luck. However, the New World is neither big nor small. There are countless islands. It is really difficult to try your luck to find this island. This matter was handed over to Avalon's intelligence chief, Planck. And it has been several years. A large amount of money has been invested every year, and there are even undercover agents infiltrating the arms trading routes, but so far, they have still not been able to find the home base of the Revolutionary Army. Orgrim was not surprised. If the Revolutionary Army's lair was so easy to find, Durag would have been used as dried meat by the 5 old stars on Mary Joa. Monet listened to Orgrim's inquiry, flipped through a few pages in the notebook in his hand, found information recording matters related to the Revolutionary Army, and said, according to the investigation of our Avalon Intelligence Department, recently, the Revolutionary Army seems to travel frequently to Alabasta, and has already had a conflict with Crocodile. The specific purpose: kidnapping Nicole Orbia, right? Orgrim smiled and said. The Ministry of Intelligence speculates so. Monet nodded with a smile. Not that I expected it. Orgrim said softly. The Revolutionary Army has always wanted to find a reason that can stand, or in other words, set up a flag that is a moral benchmark and the commanding heights of justice. Unlike pirates like them, Orgrim Grimm doesn't need a reason at all to set up a world government. As a pirate, what reason does he need? Be it justice or evil, whatever comes his way. But the Revolutionary Army is different. They need a reason, preferably Guangwei. The real reason is to use the world government's black material to occupy the commanding heights and launch an attack on the world government from the perspective of morality and justice. It is best to threaten the legitimacy and legality of the world government. And more, what Rag is eyeing is the text of history. Orgrim doesn't believe it at all when you say how much Durag loves history. He is so desperate to find the text of history because he just wants to understand the hidden secrets of the world government through the text of history. He believes that this truth is most likely the world government's black material. It is something that can shake the foundation of the world government's rule. I have my own personal opinion, anyway. Orgrim has this: I don't feel anything. What's the point of finding out the dirty stuff? To put it bluntly, in this world, it's all about strength. Those who stare at the past and indulge in history will sooner or later be eliminated by the future. 800 years have passed since this happened. Even if the world government has any dirty information, the person who suffered it must have passed away. How significant is this matter? Orgrim didn't understand, but there might be a reason why the Revolutionary Army was looking for him, life and death, and Durag was not stupid enough to not see these reasons clearly. And Albia is the person who can interpret the text of history. When Durag's Revolutionary Army searched for her in the dark world, they called her the light that guides the revolution. It seems that he admires Albia quite a bit. But unfortunately, Albia didn't care about the Revolutionary Army at all, and instead followed Crocodile and became a happy pirate. He only wants revenge. As for Orbia's revenge, Orgrim had no interest in taking care of it before. Whatever he wanted, it would be fine. He even felt that Crocodile was not qualified to revenge the world government. Now, as far as goals are concerned, the two have separated. Once Orgrim achieves his goal, it is naturally impossible for Orbia to launch any revenge against the world government. When the time comes, let her kill some celestial dragons or something, and she should be able to vent her anger, right? If it doesn't work, you can't blame me for not giving her face. It's amazing. For Robin's sake, don't kill her. Is it okay to be put under house arrest? Orgrim thought in his heart. Anyway, he will not give in on such a matter of interest. As for Brother Baradai, unfortunately, there is still no relevant news, Monet said again. Orgrim's thoughts were brought back. He smiled and waved his hands and said, look slowly, don't be anxious. None of these things have to be done right now, so Orgrim is not in a hurry. He picked up the warhammer again and walked to another kneeling prisoner, seemingly not even interested in speaking to him. No more. He gestured at the sea level and seemed to be calculating a parabola. Orgrim looked very professional. The man kneeling in front of Orgrim had a piece of cloth stuffed in his mouth, with fear and despair in his eyes. Wu Yaya wanted to say something to beg for mercy. But in the end, there was no such chance. Boom, with a muffled sound, Orgrim struck out, and the prisoner's figure drew a parabola in the air. The blood on his body drew this trajectory, flew several hundred meters, and fell into the sea with a snap. After finishing the blow, Orgrim waved his hand and said, "No more playing, it's not interesting, just deal with it." Monet nodded with a smile. And some white flying snow suddenly stirred up on the ground under his feet. In just a few moments, the remaining prisoners were covered in ice and snow and became snowmen. There is no doubt that Secretary Monet, who is submissive in front of Orgrim and seems gentle and considerate, is also a ruthless character who kills without blinking an eye. Just as Orgrim was about to leave the beach, the phone bug Monet was carrying rang. Nye quickly took out the phone, took a look at it and said, "Master Chui, this is Mr. Enilu." "Enero?" Orgrim was stunned for a moment, and then said with a smile on his face, "That guy, can't he be restless? The new year is approaching, and things are getting more and more. Today is probably the third update, ha ha ha. Some bosses said that I have bloated. It is not true. There are too many things. You should have noticed it. There is no recent update time. It used to be stable. I will finish things as soon as possible and strive to update 5 times a day." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 666. Enero? What's wrong? Orgrim sat on the rocks beside the beach and asked with a smile. On the other side of the phone bug, Anilu said with a smile on his lips, "Lord Orgrim, here in the East China Sea, someone has appeared." "Some situations. About that princess," Orgrim raised his eyebrows. "Vivi, on her own, has no strength, and now she has no influence. She is alone. It seems worthless, but to Orgrim, she is more important to the Warhammer pirates. It is very meaningful to say that. Whether Orgrim's previous arrangements and imagination can be worked out, in the end, it may depend on Wei, the last princess of the Nefertali clan. This can solve them. She is an important figure in the issue of legitimacy and legality of the Kazgarot family. So Orgrim is quite fond of this little princess. Perhaps he has doubts about Wei's political IQ. After all, she was taken care of by Cobra. She was raised by a guy, and in the original story, she acted a little too naive. But aside from that, Orgrim still has a good impression of Vivi. Yes, something unexpected happened. I was originally going to stay here and lurk for a while as planned, but Crocodile's people came after me. In order to avoid a bigger accident, I took action. Now, how to arrange it? Continue to let Princess Wei stay here? Enilu asked. Orgrim thought for a moment and said, "What do you think?" Enilu was stunned for a moment, and then said, "From what I have observed so far, Princess Wei, although she was once a princess and a descendant of 20 kings, is not really arrogant, and she seems to realize it now. She has lost sight of reality, but she has deep hatred in her heart, hatred for Crocodile. Hatred is not a problem. That Crocodile guy is very ambitious. Sooner or later he will be unable to bear loneliness. When I'm done with him, it's time to deal with him. By then, if Her Royal Highness the Princess behaves well, it won't be a problem to help her get revenge. Since you think the rest is fine, just bring her back," Orgrim said with a smile. Enel also laughed and said, "Yes, Lord Orgrim." He originally thought that this time he came to the East China Sea, it would be a long-term mission. Unexpectedly, he could return to the New World so soon. What an unexpected surprise. "Thank you, Crocodile. By the way, before you come back, go to Cocoa West Village and bring Nami's family to Avalon along the way," Orgrim warned. "Yes, got it," Enilu responded immediately. After that, he didn't say anything else. After Orgrim expressed concern for Enilu for a few more words, he hung up the phone bug. After handing the phone bug to Monet, Orgrim Reem stretched and said, "Let's go back and eat." "What do you want to eat?" "Should I say hello to the kitchen in advance?" Monet asked with a smile. "Whatever you want, eat whatever you want," Orgrim said with a smile. Ah, by the way, Mr. Chui, I heard that His Highness has been very dissatisfied recently, Monet said jokingly. Tisk, what is that guy dissatisfied with? Orgrim smacked his lips, as if he already knew. You said that you have deprived him of his right to freedom of love. He has never met Princess Weiwei. How could he marry her? Monet said with a smile. Orgrim also laughed, waved his hand and said, this boy, after going out for a trip, his wings have grown hard. His son is also old, does he know what love is? This made Orgrim feel a little emotional, but also a little funny. Monet said with a smile, I don't think so, because every time His Highness said these words, he was in front of Yamato. Gee ha 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 ha, that's it, Orgrim laughed. Andrest was worried that Yamato would be unhappy. But Yamato knew the news before Andrest did. She was in a mood for a while, but later accepted it. After all, the environmental impact is quite large. Kaido is a bohemian man, and Orgrim is about the same. In the Warhammer Pirates, except for Beckman, who has a very high moral integrity and has great self-control, Reiju is with him. Even though most of the rest of them are single, the women around them are always different and have fun every night. Under the influence of this environment, although Yamato was a little unhappy about it, in the end, he accepted it. Orgrim still likes Yamato very much. After all, Kaido sent her to him at a very young age and has been raising her by his side. He has already regarded her as his daughter. So I made it clear to Yamato that Weiwei, the princess, could never threaten her status. This princess is Orgrim's tool man. How to get along with each other is up to Yamato himself. Anyway, Orgrim will not really wrong Yamato for Weiwei. If Andrest and Yamato don't want to, they can just maintain the same status as Vivi and live separately, and Orgrim won't care. Orgrim was smiling and chatting with Monet while walking. On the other side, in the East China Sea, Enelu also put away the phone bug. At this time, he had already changed his clothes. He was still sitting in the corner of the restaurant, but in front of him stood Princess Weiwei. Not far away, Sanji, Zoro, and Kuina are all looking at this side curiously. Her Royal Highness Princess Vivi, I have already communicated with our Lord Orgrim. If possible, would you please come back to Avalon with me? There, no one can threaten your safety, Enelu said softly. Weiwei looked at Enel with a complicated expression and said, Why? Why are you, the Warhammer pirates, targeting me? Do you want to use me to deal with Crocodile? Or capture Alabasta? Weiwei is not a fool either. She had a special status, and she knew it, so she thought of this immediately. Enelu smiled. This plan was originally Lord Beckman's idea. Just as Weiwei said, having her in his hands would be of great use in case he had to deal with Crocodile in the future. It can even help Avalon and gain huge benefits. Alabasta is the oldest country of mankind, and although Avalon is similar to Alabasta in terms of population size, it even has a stronger geographical advantage, and its economy has surpassed Alabasta by countless streets. But in the final analysis, in terms of cultural heritage, there is still a lot of difference. When it comes to Avalon, even if everyone admires it, they can't help but think that it's just a barbaric pirate country. If Alabasta, the oldest country of mankind, is controlled, it can even be transferred to the Evernight Sea and incorporated into Mr. Beckman's macro plan of nationalizing pirates. That will undoubtedly be of great help to the Warhammer pirates in filling this shortcoming. But no human being can look down on Avalon or the Evernight Sea on this level. After all, the oldest country in mankind, the place where civilization was first born, has been absorbed by the Warhammer pirates. Are you not anti-human? But there was no need to tell Weiwei about these twists and turns. So Enelu smiled and said, No, Her Royal Highness Princess Vivi, you may not know much about our Warhammer pirates, or you may have only a vague ability to distinguish the concept of powerful. Crocodile is considered the opponent of our Warhammer pirates. Is not it? It's true that you are the Yonko pirates, but Crocodile will definitely board the Yonko, right? And just recently, aren't you equal opponents? Wei couldn't help but ask. Evenly matched? Yonko, Enilu smiled and said very confidently, there is no such thing as evenness at all. Looking at the entire New World, no, looking at the whole world, there is no pirate who can compete with us. If we talk about an opponent, there is indeed one, but it is not Crocodile, but the Navy headquarters. After a pause, Eniru said in a very serious tone, to deal with Crocodile, it doesn't matter with or without you, it's just that on the surface, it is more beautiful, and it is more in line with the interests of some of our Warhammer pirates. That's all. In essence, it's no exaggeration to say that if you want to destroy Alabasta and Crocodile, you don't even need Lord Orgrim to take action. We, the cotters of the Warhammer pirates, can do it. To you, he may be an enemy that can never be defeated, but to us, the Warhammer pirates, not a great person. What do you want me to do? I am nothing more than a subjugated princess. Do I have any other value to you? Wei asked unwillingly. I can't explain this to you, but you are the person our Lord Orgrim wants. No one can stop his will, and it must be carried out to the end, Enilu said in a deep voice. Wei felt a little panicked in her heart. Khazgaro's Orgrim, the king of the night, was the most powerful and evil pirate in the world. Could it be that you have taken a fancy to yourself? But when I think about it, I think it's impossible. How could such a man do such a thing because of his beauty? If he was addicted to beauty, he wouldn't be able to reach this point, right? What's more, I'm not really beautiful to the point of being beautiful, right? Rumor has it that the most beautiful woman in the world, Boya Hancock, isn't she the woman from Orgrim? There's no reason for this. Don't get me wrong. Enilu gave a reminder, and then said, Lord Orgrim said that if you behave well, I can't consider helping you get revenge. Princess Wei, who was still hesitant at first, had a look of determination on her face after hearing this. Without any hesitation at all, she said, okay, I'll go back to Avalon with you. Annie. Lu looked at the princess with some surprise, and then said with a little emotion, the flame of hatred has also swallowed you up. I can't find the meaning of my existence, only revenge. As long as I can get revenge, I dare to go through mountains of swords and seas of fire, even hell, Princess Wei said in a very firm tone. At the same time, at the Navy headquarters Marineford, Jun and Fujitora smiled and slowly walked off the warship. Mr. Jun, what are you going to do when you come to the headquarters this time? Marshal, what do you want to tell me? Fujitora asked curiously with a smile. Jun held a cigarette in his mouth, looking like a heroic and strong woman, and said without looking back, it has something to do with Marineford. As for me, I'm going to apply. Left G-5. Are you leaving? Fujitora was stunned for a moment and said with some surprise. Although he had already heard the news, but Jun was about to leave at this time, Fujitora was still a little surprised. Didn't I tell you before? Why be so surprised? G-5 will be handed over to you from now on. Yuxiao Jun waved his hands and said very coolly. Is there any vacant position here at the headquarters? Fujitora asked with a smile. No, I will return to my headquarters and continue to be my lieutenant general and candidate for senior general, Jun curled his lips and said. After a short pause, before Fujitora smiled and asked what he was asking, Jun continued, how much? You have to leave some time to prepare. I estimate that the marshal will only have to wait 3 or 2 years at most, and we will get ready to start a war with the Warhammer pirates, and that guy Orgrim will probably have to wait for this much time. After the war, no matter the victory or defeat, the Navy will undergo great changes. Before that, I will be quiet. Just be my lieutenant general. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 667. Fujitora smiled and was not a fool. Naturally, he could tell that Jun intended to compete for the position of admiral, but now was not the time. The Navy is now at a stage of development and needs stability. Although Jun aspires to become a general, he is not willing to mess with the Navy just for his own ideas. Justice and integrity still exist in Jun. She will wait for the opportunity in the past 2 years, and this opportunity is likely to appear with the Marshal. At the same time, Fujitora smiled and could tell that Jun was treating him as a confidant. Otherwise, there is no need to tell him so much. On this point, Fujitora didn't reject anything with a smile. Although he was powerful, he only lacked the title of candidate general between him and Jun. He is also a lieutenant general. If he wants to return to his headquarters, Fujitora can do so at any time. But Fujitora knew with a smile that his foundation in the Navy was too shallow. They were recruited directly from the civilian population. In the Navy, there were not many colleagues at the same time, and they had not been around the headquarters for long, so there were no connections or relationships left at all. They have been hanging out in G-5 all this time, and his strongest relationship is with Jun. If you don't hang out with her, who will you hang out with? What's more, if he is powerful, is Jun weak? Fujitora smiled and knew clearly that Jun was also a first-class powerful man, no less powerful than the 3 generals at the Navy headquarters. The awakener of the ability of the animal-type fantasy beast species, and a great swordsman. The most important thing is that Jun is in the Navy and has deep connections. Although there seems to be a big age gap, she is actually sisters with the Navy's Chief Staff Officer Ahe, and she is also very close to the naval hero Garp, so good that she can call the old hero Garp Little Garp. Marshal of the Warring States period especially trusted her, and Boss Zifa was also her teacher. Kuzan, Porisalino, Sakaski and others all have good relations with her. Most of the elites in the headquarters admire Jun. I act as her confidant, little brother, etc., and I don't feel wronged at all. Others want to be one, but they are not qualified yet. If you think about it carefully, in the Navy, this woman Jun has no shortcomings at all. Thinking about it further, she even has one more advantage than the generals in her headquarters. That's G-5. The bastards in the Navy also support their eldest sister from the bottom of their hearts. Mr. Jun, when you came to G-5, had you already planned all of this? Fujitora smiled and asked in surprise. If this is really the case, then this woman Jun is too scary, right? Jun looked at Fujitora in surprise, smiled, shook his head and said, how is that possible? How can anyone calculate to this extent? I'm just taking it step by step. When I left the headquarters, I just didn't want to be constrained by the bloatedness and rigidity of the headquarters. Now, in G-5, after staying in the New World for so long, I understand some other reasons, and I don't want to be constrained. It's not that I want to leave, I want to avoid it, it's okay. Can? Fujitora smiled and murmured softly. Okay, Master, change, but this requires stronger strength, higher status, and greater power. These are the reasons that prompted me to return to my headquarters. Jun smiled and said. Fujitora smiled and nodded first, then shook his head and said, although the principle is such a truth, but in practice, I'm afraid it's not that simple. I think the Marshal is also a person with great ambitions. But in the end, it failed to change these shortcomings of the Navy. Everyone has their own meaning. I am the same, and so is the Marshal. The Marshal and I have different thoughts. The most fundamental priority in the Marshal's heart is not to solve the bloat and stiffness, but to strengthen the Navy. He wanted to make the Navy stronger and return to the New World. From this point of view, he did a good job, didn't he? The Navy is far more powerful than it was back then. Whether it is the military strength of our Navy, the number of bases, the territory actually controlled, as well as the combat quality, there are more elite generals than back then, and there are other killer moves in the pipeline. These are the Marshal's efforts over the years and his contribution to the Navy, aren't they? Jun said with a smile. Fujitora smiled and nodded with a little understanding. Perhaps, as Jun said, the first priority in the warring states Marshal's heart is the powerful strength of the Navy, rather than breaking free from the shackles. Things. Even, in order to enhance more strength, the Marshal is willing to bow to the world government and make compromises. This is the choice made by him as the Marshal. Living in this era, there is nothing to say, correct, incomparable. However, after the war, regardless of the victory or defeat of the Navy, the era, everything will change. By then, what the Marshal of the Warring States period has done will be almost the same. In the next era, the Navy will and should have new ideas, Jun said solemnly. If the Navy wins, then everything will be easy to do. It will deter the New World and end the era of great pirates. It will restore the Navy's dominance over the sea. After this, the Marshal should retire honorably, and the new Marshal should change the Navy's thinking is to loosen the layers of shackles on the Navy. If the Navy loses, let alone, in the next 5 to 10 years, or even longer, 20 or 30 years, the Navy will not even think about it. It's time to enter the new world again. It's hard work, but it's also an opportunity to rise from the ashes. It can also make the Navy realize that if they want to enter the new world, they can't just rely on their own strength. They also need to get rid of the outside world. The influence on the Navy's decision-making should make the Navy not be so restrained when making decisions. Where does this influence and restriction come from? Jun need not say more, the Navy understands it. Let the Navy pay attention to this issue. Let's work together to solve this problem. Only in this way can we forge ahead, overcome difficulties, and pursue our goals bravely. Therefore, no matter the victory or defeat, the Navy must have new ideas and new goals. This requires new general, even, the new Marshal. As an old subordinate of Jun, Fujitora naturally understood what Jun was pursuing with a smile, so after listening to Jun's words, he said seriously, I will protect G. The power of 5, at the same time, supports your ideas. Thank you, Jun said with a smile on his lips. No need to thank you, just like-minded, Fujitora responded with a smile. As he spoke, Jun and Fujitora smiled and arrived in front of the Justice Fortress of the Navy headquarters. Just as they were about to step in, they saw that they were wearing a cloak of justice and the rank of general on their shoulders. Sakaski, wearing a Navy hat, walked out of the building. Now, the Navy is making preparations for the new world. Porisalino and Kuzan are almost absent from Marineford all year round. They are stationed in the new world and are responsible for various tasks. Supervision of this kind of construction tasks. Therefore, there is only one general like Sakaski in the headquarters. Of course, Sakaski also wants to enter the new world and show his talents there. But it is also because of this that the Warring States Marshal don't let him in. Now, we are preparing for the new world. With your fiery temper, Sakaski, it is very likely that your plans will be disrupted when you enter the new world. Maybe you can mess around, and the war did it start in advance? So Sakaski was left at the headquarters to take charge of the rest. Sakaski hadn't seen Jun for a while, so he happened to meet Jun at this time, and he was a little surprised. Isn't this guy always cool with the headquarters? Why is he here? Although he is confused, the relationship between Sakaski and Jun is pretty good. In the early years, there was some gap between the two, especially Jun witnessed Sakaski sinking the refuge ship in O'Hara. But this matter had long since drifted away with the wind due to Jun's experience in the new world. She is not as naive as Kuzan. To get along in the new world, of course she has to be ruthless, otherwise she won't be able to get along at all. What's more, compared to Sakazuki, she has already committed herself to the pirates, so no one should look down on the other. At the same time, because the ancient weapon Pluto was really resurrected in the hands of Crocodile because of O'Hara's scholars. At that time, Sakazuki's black spot on O'Hara was also destroyed by the Navy. Approved. Even Kuzan sometimes felt that he was too naive at the time and should have been like Sakazuki. In this way, there would be no such thing as Crocodile creating Hades. As the saying goes, it's better to cry together than to cry together. This is the truth. Sometimes, the thoughts of superiors are indeed very cold. Sacrifice O'Hara and save the world is in the interests of the vast majority of people. Jun had some objections to Sakazuki before, but they have all dissipated. Sakazuki had no objection to Jun. On the contrary, he quite admired Jun. He persisted for so many years in order to punish the bastard Orgrim. In the New World, he also gave no less to the Warhammer pirates. Damn it, he admires Jun anyway. Of course, he didn't know at this time that Jun and Orgrim were already on the same bed. Otherwise, he didn't know what he would be thinking. What's more, Jun's appearance is here. Even if Sakazuki is hard-hearted, he is still a man. Even if he doesn't like and admire Jun, there is no need to hate beauty, right? Jun? Why are you back? Did something important happen? Sakazuki was the first to say hello. Jun nodded to him, then shook his head and said nothing big happened. I just came back to report on my work. The marshal wants to see a smile, so I will lead the way. Ah, by the way, Sakazuki, I might have to go back to my headquarters. Do you want to come back? Sakazuki was stunned for a moment and said. How? Not welcome. Are you afraid that I will steal your position as general? Jun raised his eyebrows and said. A rare smile appeared on the face of the cold and tough guy Sakazuki, and he waved his hand and said, I, Sakazuki, am not a coward. I sit here based on my ability. Since you have assumed the position of general, you won't be afraid of anything, but you are just a little surprised. You are developing well in G-5. The Marshal also intends to move the headquarters into the New World. Why do you suddenly want to come back? G-5 is good, but it is no longer in line with my goals and ambitions, so I came back. It's as simple as that. Don't say I didn't say hello to you in advance. This time I come back, it's different from last time. I'm ready to give it a try. Can't be regularized anymore. Jun patted Jinpura on his waist and said with a smile. Sakazuki raised his brows slightly, and he naturally understood what it meant to become a full member. After all, Jun was a general candidate, so what else could he mean by becoming a full member? Then I'm really looking forward to it. Sakazuki's stiff face forced a smile. After a short pause, Sakazuki said, in this case, there will be more opportunities to meet in the future, so I won't say anything more to you. I still have military affairs to deal with. Well, farewell. Jun nodded. He missed Sakazuki and followed Jun into the Fortress of Justice. Fujitora smiled before saying, I heard that your relationship wasn't very good before? General Sakazuki is your main opponent. In the past, our relationship was not very good, but it was not bad. In the past 2 years, it has become much better. As for the opponent, the 3 generals are all my opponents, but, when Jun said this, he paused for a moment. Fujitora smiled and asked, but what? Among the 3 generals, although I have the best relationship with Kuzan and the most dull with Sakazuki, in fact, from the current perspective, I admire Sakazuki more, Jun said softly. After saying that, she stepped into the elevator. Fujitora smiled with a strange look in his eyes and followed him in. I think General Sakazuki's methods were too drastic. Fujitora stood in the elevator with a smile and suddenly said. Ha 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 ha, you see, when he works under the marshal, doesn't he do well in most cases? This matter also depends on his position and character. Sitting in the position of general is just right, but being a marshal is not beautiful. At the same time, there must be a marshal who can make good use of him, indispensable, Jun said with a smile. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 668. After knocking on the door, the voice of Marshal Sengoku came from inside. Jun and Fujitora opened the door with a smile and walked in. As soon as he entered, he saw Carp sitting on the sofa, holding a cup of hot tea in his hand, looking a little unhappy, as if he had something on his mind. The Warring States Marshal held a report in his hand and was writing and drawing. After looking up, the Warring States Marshal smiled and said, "Jun, smile, you are here." Jun and Fujitora smiled at Marshal of the Warring States period, nodded, and said in agreement, "Marshal." Then, Jun looked at Garp with a smile and said, "Little Garp, what's this expression? We haven't seen each other for a while, don't you welcome me?" Hearing this, Garp had a slight smile on his face. Said, "It's none of your business, I'm arguing with this old bastard." "Who are you calling an old bastard?" The Warring States Marshal slapped the table and cursed angrily. "Just say you," Garp said without politeness at all. Seeing that these two guys were about to quarrel, Fujitora smiled and felt a little panicked. Don't let it cause conflicts and divisions within the Navy. The top bosses are at odds, right? The influence of the Navy is huge. Especially for a Navy Marshal and a naval hero, this is a very important thing. He thought that it was not appropriate for him to speak, and he should let Jun mediate. In the end, he turned around and looked at Jun. Jun glanced at Jun and found that Jun picked up the teacup from the table very naturally and poured himself tea, with a smile on his face, as if he was watching a good show. "Your Excellency Jun," Fujitora smiled and couldn't help but call out. Jun naturally understood what Fujitora was thinking with a smile. He waved his hands with a smile and said, "It's nothing. The two of them are like this. You have to get used to it." Fujitora smiled and was stunned for a moment, then nodded, and the worries in his heart dissipated a lot. After the Warring States Marshal and Garp quarreled for a while, the two pretended to ignore the other and looked down upon each other. At this time, Jun asked, "What on earth is going on?" "Humph, Jun, didn't you tell me before that that boy Ace had gone to Orgrim's hands? I thought I couldn't let it go, lest that kid really make a big mistake in the hands of Orgrim later, so I wanted to get some information to see his situation and see if there was a chance to capture him or something, but it turned out that this old man bastard, keep blocking me." "Do you think I can stop being angry?" Garp said angrily. "You are the bastard, you said it was simple, is it so easy? Where is your grandson?" "In Avalon." "What is Avalon's intelligence level?" "Extremely dangerous. We haven't been able to get much information from there, and you still have to do this," Marshal of the Warring States period said angrily. "I didn't say that I would use the Navy's intelligence to get it, and I'm not the kind of person who would let the Navy's intelligence officers take risks for my own selfish gain. Ships are constantly coming and going from Avalon's port day and night, so why don't you ask someone to inquire about it?" Garp also cursed angrily. "No. Now that Orgrim is very wary of our naval headquarters. We asked people to inquire about it, just in case he thought something wrong and thought we were going to deal with his son. Anyway, don't irritate him," Marshal of the Warring States period retorted. "This won't work, that won't work either, what do you think we should do?" "That's my grandson," Garp asked with some annoyance. "It just wouldn't work anyway, unless there was a channel for smooth communication with Orgrim." The Warring States Marshal shook his head resolutely and said, "Smooth communication channels," as if Garp heard something. He glanced at the Sengoku Marshal strangely, and then he turned to look at Jun. Jun, who was drinking tea and watching a movie, was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, "I mean, why did you choose the day I came? There happened to be a quarrel here." After finishing speaking, Jun glanced at Fujitora and said with a smile, "Did you see it? These two guys are more cunning than the other. You should be more careful when you see them in the future." Fujitora was stunned when he smiled, and then he couldn't help but smile and shake his head without speaking. With a slightly embarrassed smile on his face, the Warring States Marshal waved his hands and said, "This is not against you, Jun." "That's right, isn't this a coincidence?" Garp also slapped his thigh and said. Jun looked at the two guys who were quarreling just now and now started to sing the double act again, curled his lips and said, "I don't know you guys." After a short pause, Jun said, "I know about this, little Garp. After I finish talking about the business, I'll ask it for you." Garp said happily, "Okay, then it's all up to you. Alas, without you, I don't know what to do. I thought there might be something wrong with your choice before, but now that I think about it, this is fine." Jun: "Why do I feel like I've been betrayed?" Marshal Warring States glared at Garp, a guy who couldn't speak, and Garp quickly shut up. Then the Warring States Marshal said, "I'm so lucky on the road, Jun, just smile. It's nothing to be miserable about, you just get used to it." Jun smiled and said. After a slight pause, Jun said, "Marshal, I am going to step down from the post of Director of the Navy's G-5 base and apply to be transferred from G-5 and return to the headquarters. Is it appropriate?" Marshal Warring States put a smile on his lips and said, "It's appropriate. Didn't you mention it to me before? But G-5, have you made arrangements?" "There is nothing to arrange, just hand it over to Yu Xiao, he is familiar with everything." Jun smiled and said. "Yeah?" Marshal Sengoku nodded, then looked at Fujitora and smiled, with a warm smile on his face. "Yu Xiao, it's been a few years since I joined the Navy. How are you doing in G-5, do you want to go back to the headquarters with Jun? I happen to have a suitable candidate to succeed you." Fujitora smiled and waved his hands, smiling. He said, No, although Jun Dano is leaving, I feel extremely reluctant to leave, but I am very comfortable staying in G-5. What's more, this is the first time I have been promoted since I joined the Navy. How can you give up?" Marshal Sengoku didn't offer any more advice. It seemed that Jun and Fujitora had already discussed it and reached a consensus with a smile. In this case, there is no need for him to force anything. "Okay, this way, I want the personnel department to issue a charter. When you land and stamp it this afternoon, Jun will be transferred to the headquarters and continue to serve as the Lieutenant General and Candidate General of the headquarters. If you smile, you will get more and more burdens, and you will be handed over to G-5. Here you go, you will be the base commander of G-5. Marshal Sengoku smiled. Jun and Fujitora both nodded immediately and said, "Thank you, Marshal." At this time, Garp suddenly said, "Warring States, isn't the position of Chief Inspector still vacant? Why not leave it to Jun? The Chief Inspector and the Chief Staff Officer are all virtual positions of the headquarters and are honorary positions. In essence, the power is not very great, but the status is relatively high. In terms of status, it is not inferior to the General of the Navy headquarters. The great Staff Officer she has been sitting in this position for a long time, and she has maintained the rank of Lieutenant General. There is nothing to say. In fact, the positions of Chief Staff Officer and Chief Inspector can generally be reserved for generals or marshals after they retire. Like General Zifa, after retirement, he could have served as the Chief Inspector of the Navy headquarters, but he did not have that intention and went directly to become the principal of the officer training camp. His status is also very high, and he still maintains the rank of general. Yes, there are many general ranks, but there can only be 3 people who sit in the position of actual powerful generals in the headquarters. Therefore, before this term, the Navy's chief staff officers, chief inspectors, and other big bosses often maintain the title of general or even general. What about the rank of marshal? It's ridiculously valuable. In fact, in the original story, after the Battle of Dingshan, the naval marshal of the Warring States period took a backseat with the rank of marshal and took on the position of chief inspector. It can be regarded as assisting Sakaisuke. After hearing what Garp said, Marshal Warring States was stunned for a moment, because in his mind, the position of chief inspector was reserved for himself. Of course, no one had followed him before. Come on, Warring States is not someone who just occupies a latrine and doesn't take a shit. If it's empty, it's empty. Now that Garp opened his mouth, Warring States hesitated a little. Then he thought about Wolao Seeing, calling Kongwo to give instructions. It seems a little unreasonable if I only listen to him but not do anything about him, and only give Jun a salary increase or something. How about letting Jun be the chief inspector? When he retires, that's easy to say. Jun had talked a lot with him on the way to Golden City. Sengoku now also knows that this guy is no longer the Jun he once was, and she is now motivated. When the time comes for him to retreat, he will naturally have to recruit a marshal to replace him. One carrot after another, Jun may be able to go one step further and sit in the position of general. By then, the position of chief inspector will be empty again. Coming? You can go by yourself again, okay? Even. Thinking of this, Marshal Warring States glanced at Garp again, wondering if his words had any deeper meaning or was he expressing his stance. Or something else. Because, regardless of the fact that almost all naval marshals in the past dynasties were selected from among the three generals. But in fact, if we really take it seriously and look at the explicit regulations, the positions of Chief Staff Officer and Chief Inspector of the headquarters are all eligible to compete for the position of Marshal. But even before that, this position had always been reserved for retirees and was treated as an honor. Therefore, it had never threatened the real power of the three generals, and there had never been any competition with the generals for the position of Marshal. Jun was clearly not one to retire. So if she sits in the position of Chief Inspector, what will happen to her in the future? Will something rare happen? Thinking of this, the Warring States Marshal felt a little uneasy and at the same time a little hopeful. Even Jun, who was in G-5, could understand that as a marshal, he might not be able to serve for a few more years. In fact, Sengoku did believe that he would retire after the war. It's nothing more than 2 points. If you win, you will retire honorably. If you lose, you will step down in despair. But no matter what, he felt that his historical mission to the Navy would be over by then, and he had no regrets. And after he retires, the Navy will definitely have another marshal. Currently, there are only 2 candidates, one is Kuzan and the other is Sakaisuke. That guy Porisalino has made it clear that he has no interest in this matter at all. The Warring States Marshal was slightly partial to Kuzan, but he also believed that Kuzan had many shortcomings. The most taboo thing for a marshal was to waver, and he had to be firm in his will. Sakaisuke does this very well, but the problem is that Sakaisuke is too easily biased. Being a marshal, it is also very taboo to be extreme, because the marshal is responsible for the future of the entire Navy. As a marshal, if he makes a wrong step, the Navy is likely to fall into the abyss with him. So he was also not very reassured about Sakaisuke. But before, he had no choice, but now, if we follow Garp's suggestion and arrange for Jun to become the Grand Inspector. At least, he has one more obscure choice, and can also give Sakaisuke and Kuzan some encouragement. Let them understand that there is another competitor, and if they want to be a marshal, they must be better. This is a good thing. Maybe something can be changed, and if the time comes, one of them will take over as marshal. If you are really dissatisfied, then go to Jun. It can be regarded as leaving a way out for yourself and the Navy. Regarding Jun, Marshal Sengoku is still very relieved. Just as Fujitora thought before he smiled, This guy in Jun does not have the outstanding personality of Kuzan and Sakaski. What kind of hawks and doves are there in him? The label of faction, no matter what, has the support of factions behind it. When she left the headquarters, she had already torn off all the labels on her body. But, she is awesome. The thing is, she has almost no shortcomings. In the isolation and helplessness of the new world, the rapid development of G-5 has proven her ability to lead independently, and the headquarters plans to move to the new world in the future. She has a great advantage in this regard. It can even be said that if she had not chosen not to be a general, there would not be so many twists and turns now. She is definitely the marshal's first choice. But then again, if Jun had become a general, he might not have grown to the point where he has no shortcomings in all aspects like now. In short, this matter is complicated and has two sides. Okay, Jun, what do you mean? The Warring States Marshal stopped his thoughts and nodded. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 669. Jun was also a little surprised at this time. She had never thought about being a big inspector or anything like that. On the way just now, I smiled at Fujitora and told him that when he returned to the headquarters, he would continue to serve as lieutenant general and candidate for general. This time, it was actually a bit beyond her expectation. If it were in the past, Jun would definitely shake his head and refuse. But now, she wants to compete for the position of general and marshal. Before, I thought that this matter was a bit difficult, and it would be very troublesome to overtake in corners. But now, it seems that there are some methods. Not to mention the general, Jun never thought about who would be his opponent in the position that would become vacant after the marshal resigned. T. Dolphin Jiaji. How dare you compete with yourself for your own licking dog? What's more, Jiaji has almost the same temperament as Garp, and has no interest in promotion or anything like that. But her Jun ambitions did not stop at the Admiral of the Navy headquarters. But I want to be a marshal. With the title of Grand Inspector, if there is a competition in the future, she will be qualified to enter. There is no reason to refuse this kind of thing. So after smiling, Jun nodded and said, okay, how could I refuse such a good thing like getting promoted and making a fortune? Okay, I'll implement it for you this afternoon. Marshal Sengoku nodded and said with a smile. As long as he Sengoku nodded, the others would have no room to speak. But considering Jun's popularity, no one would object. What's more, it's not just him Sengoku. This naval marshal is supporting Jun, and behind Jun, there is the 5 old stars. I really need to thank that bastard Orgrim for this. After talking about these things, a few people chatted again. Let's talk about recent interesting things. Garp, an old guy, always asks Jun about Orgrim's personal situation, which makes Jun want to kill the old guy with a sword. After chatting for a while, Marshal Sengoku he picked up a document from the table, held the teacup, and walked to the sofa. After sitting down, he handed it to Fujitora and said with a smile, Yuxiao, I have asked you to come to the headquarters this time for a very important matter. I want your help. Can you see if this plan is feasible? Fujitora smiled and was a little confused. Although he also wore the epaulets of a senior general like a lieutenant general. But in fact, from the time he joined the Navy to now, he had hardly participated in any major decisions of the headquarters. Previously, the headquarters had what's going on here? He doesn't have any outstanding performance. Why has the marshal changed this time? Is it because he is going to be the base commander of G-5, so he needs to train himself? While thinking about it, Tenhu smiled and took the file, opened it and read it. He didn't know if he didn't look at it, but he was shocked when he saw it. This, Fujitora smiled and looked at Marshal Sengoku in shock, then lowered his head and quickly continued to flip through the documents. Jun was also a little surprised. What happened? What's going on? Is it important? Jun asked curiously. Of course it's important, it's related to the headquarters relocation plan. Marshal Sengoku didn't hide anything and spoke directly. Different from the previous story, in the original story, the Navy headquarters moved into the New World. This was because in the Battle of the Top, the Whitebeard pirates were defeated and scrapped, and Edward Newgate, the strongest man in the world, also died on the spot in Marineford. Although the Navy also paid a heavy price and even lost Imperialton. However, it has to be said that for the world government, it was a magnificent victory. With the power of victory, the Navy started the world government's recruitment to supplement its high-level combat power. At the same time, taking advantage of various reasons such as the New World pirates competing for Whitebeard's inheritance, it entered the New World in one go. And the new naval headquarters was located there. This may be a plan, or it may be a choice made out of desperation. After all, after the war, Marineford was directly broken into an archipelago, and it was not suitable to continue to bear the heavy responsibility of the naval headquarters. At that time, Sakazuki is an enterprising naval marshal, and there is nothing wrong with making these choices. But it is different now. Marshal Sengoku has no intention of fighting a war at all, and his main target is not currently on the Whitebeard pirates. On the body. But the Warhammer pirates. The Navy still chose the option of active attack. In other words, they have almost no choice. They can't just wait for the pirates to fight outside the New World, right? I guess there are according to Orgrim's thoughts, maybe he won't even come out. Naturally, Sengoku didn't know that he wanted to break in, and Orgrim was also secretly planning to coerce the pirate camp and fight out. Therefore, if the Navy wants to eliminate the pirates' effective force and take control of the New World, it must take the initiative. Again, in the New World, the Navy has little advantage. Therefore, as the Marshal of the Navy, what Sengoku wanted to do was to make up for this disadvantage, at least to make it 50-50 with the pirates, so that it would be convenient to start a war, right? Nowadays, the Navy's series of actions in the New World are all preparations for this. For example, the purpose of building a new naval branch base is to mobilize troops and generals, and continuously import the Navy's military power into the New World. At the same time, according to the idea of the Naval Marshal Sengoku, he wanted to move the naval headquarters to the New World before the war started. That way, the fight will be smoother and more advantageous. Questions about the Navy headquarters? Jun was stunned for a moment, then said with a smile, Kuzan and Porisalino are responsible for building the Navy branch base, and the construction of the headquarters will be secretly handed over to G-5, this is a great idea. With Kuzan and Porisalino attracting attention, I also left G-5. In this way, there will be much less eyes on G-5. It is built in secret, as long as it is kept secret, work well done. Jun seemed to have thought of something and said with a smile. However, the Warring States Marshal had a profound smile on his lips and shook his head gently. There was also a smile on Garp's face that you would never expect. When Jun saw this, he was stunned again. Isn't that so? What could that be? But no one explained anything to her. When Jun saw this, he felt a little unhappy knowing that these people were trying to show off again, but he didn't ask any more questions. After a long time, Fujitora smiled and read the document in his hand. His eyes were a little empty, and he was thinking about something in his heart. After he recovered his thoughts, the Warring States Marshal asked, how about this plan? I just put it together this morning. At present, it is only you and me. Garp knows that if it is appropriate, we can start making arrangements. If it is not suitable, we can also choose other options, such as following the idea just mentioned by Jun. I think it is not bad. This, Marshal, Won't you destroy the layout of the first half of the Grand Line? Mary Jo's Archguard problem, the Trinity design strategy of the three fortresses of justice. Fujitora smiled and couldn't help but ask. When Jun heard this, he was a little surprised, as if he had guessed something. No, there will be some impact, but building a new base here is much more convenient and safer than building it in the new world. Moreover, times have changed, and our navy cannot always hold on to those old ideas and remain unchanged, the Warring States Marshal said without hesitation. Yes, it is necessary to make bold changes in times like this, Garp also said with a smile. In order to prove his guess, Jun also took the plan from Fujitora's hand with a smile. After looking at it for a few times, there was a touch of shock on his face, and then another look. With a hint of clarity. Porosalino and Kuzan were building a large-scale construction project in the New World. Everyone, including me, thought that this was to use the surrounding branch bases as a defense to create a safe space, so as to proceed to the second phase of building a new naval headquarters, Jun whispered. Then, he put down the document in his hand, looked up at the Warring States Marshal and said, "But I never expected that, Marshal Boss, you are so big. This is not to build a new naval headquarters at all, but to build the entire naval headquarters Marineford Island, move there together." Marshal Warring States put a smug smile on his lips, and said, "How about this? Can I hide this plan from the outside world?" He is indeed a wise general. Fujitora couldn't help but praise with a smile. Everyone thought that our navy still had to do more preparations. For example, after the new headquarters was built, at least the personnel of the Navy headquarters should be moved there to get used to it, etc. But now, if we follow this plan, there will be no necessary. After Marineford moves there, our Navy can immediately enter a state of war. There is no need for an adaptation period. If used properly, the pirates in the New World can be caught off guard, Garp said with a smile. Although our Navy has not released any clear news, outsiders speculate that this confrontation will last at least 3 or 2 years. A new conflict will not break out until we are all ready, the Warring States Marshal spoke softly. There is even the guidance of public opinion from our Navy. Looking at it now, it seems that this is not the case at all. Are you, Marshal, deliberately spreading this rumor? Jun said softly. That's right, our Navy only participated in a small part in the last war, playing a minor role, and did not gain too many benefits. There is no need to spend 3 or 2 years like Orgrim. Time is needed to digest the war dividends obtained. We only need a few months. What really consumes time is the layout before we enter the New World, such as what Kuzan and Porosalino are doing now. These have given rise to speculation from the outside world. Counting the rumors we have spread about the relocation of the headquarters, they estimate that our Navy will be able to launch this war after 2 or 3 years. But in fact, as long as Kuzan and Polusala, the branch on Nyo's side, has been built and the defensive safety zone has been formed. If Marineford can follow this plan and directly use Uxiao's ability to guide it and parachute into the New World, the initiative in the war will fall into our hands and we will fight against their pirates. Caught off guard, Marshal Sengoku said in a deep voice. Jun thought again that when Marshal Sengoku mentioned this matter to him before, he had never expressed any thoughts in this regard. Then, he came into contact with Orgrim. Maybe there is something in this. Is it that the Warring States Marshal is using himself to mislead Orgrim? Really, it makes people feel a little uncomfortable. But thinking about it, the Marshal seemed to have acted reasonably, so there was no need for Jun to be aggrieved. However, the mind of the Warring States Marshal is really terrifying. When necessary, he can be ruthless and even deceive his own people. Perhaps, because of this, he is suitable to sit in the position of Marshal, right? Although she had suspicions in her heart and was a little annoyed that she was being taken advantage of, Jun could understand what the Marshal was doing. After all, she would do the same thing if she were sitting in this position, right? You have to treat me to a big meal, Marshal, Jun glared at Marshal Sengoku. Marshal Sengoku was stunned for a moment, and then realized that Jun had already thought of those twists and turns, and couldn't help but smile and said, "Okay, I'll make amends to you." While saying this, Marshal Sengoku's sense of Jun also became better. In just a few moments, he was able to understand all these twists and turns, and at the same time he understood him very generously. Sure enough, Jun is very suitable to be a marshal. In fact, Sengoku was not absolutely sure that Jun would talk to Orgrim about these things. But he still did it and took a step casually. If it happened, the harvest would not be small. Moreover, with Orgrim as his enemy, no matter how careful he is in warring states, it is not too much. Strength and wisdom must be combined and go all out to deal with that bastard Orgrim. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 670. After describing the importance and strategy of this matter, Marshal Sengoku asked again, "How is it? Yuxiao? Is it feasible?" Fujitora thought for a moment and said, "In terms of ability alone, there is no problem, it's just that it consumes a lot of money." As soon as the marshal heard this, he felt relieved. As long as there is no problem with Fujitora's ability to smile, that's all. In fact, before Marshal Sengoku had such an interview with Fujitora, he thought it would not be a big problem. Fujitora's ability to smile is still extremely powerful in this aspect. Maybe it can't be as elegant as that bastard Shiji, but it can still be done. But my speed shouldn't be very fast, and if I implement this plan, how can I deceive others? Fujitora asked again with a smile. Marine headquarters Marineford suddenly disappeared from the sea. Such a major event is not so easy to hide. Once someone notices it, this plan is very likely to be exposed. Marshal Sengoku touched the beard on his chin and said, "This is indeed a difficult problem, but we are not in a hurry now. Let's see if there is any opportunity to deceive others. At the same time, make preparations and gradually strengthen Malinfu on the grounds of war preparations. Germany's level of confidentiality and slow process may be able to relax the vigilance of those bastards. If Marineford is suddenly raised to a state of complete secrecy, cutting off all information from leaking out, then everyone knows that the Navy will definitely take some action. Just like Marineford has been keeping an eye on Avalon, even if there is no information to be obtained, Avalon must have eyes on Marineford. Marineford is suddenly raised to the top secret level. Avalon will definitely respond accordingly, and even conduct an extensive investigation. It will be exposed sooner or later. But if you do it slowly, you may be able to lower their vigilance. You must be prepared on both sides. While waiting to see if there is an opportunity, you can slowly increase the confidentiality level. At the same time, this is just a matter of setting a date first. It's just ideas and plans. Specific matters can be gradually implemented in batches. There is no need to worry about anything now." After listening to the marshal's words, he understood what he meant with a smile, and then he didn't continue to ask anything. "In this case, there is no problem on my side and I can perform this task." Fujitora smiled and nodded. "Well, in that case, I'll leave it to you when the time comes," Marshal Warring States said happily. The transfer and promotion of the two people's positions have been arranged, and the relocation plan of the headquarters has been roughly figured out. That's all that needs to be said. Marshal Warring States said with a smile, let's go for a walk, it's almost time for dinner. Let's go have a meal together." "Is this just the way to send me away?" Jun raised his eyebrows and said. "Ha ha 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 ha, so petty," Marshal Sengoku laughed. Garp also quickly stood up and said, "Jun, we've finished talking about the serious business, it's time for you to help me, right?" While talking and laughing, a few people walked out of the marshal's office. The days on the sea passed quickly. There were constant frictions between the Navy and the pirates. However, due to Orgrim's arrangement, the Whitebeard pirates. The regiment was put on the front line of the conflict with the Navy. The Warhammer pirates and others did not have much friction with the Navy. And Newgate was not really stupid. He could endure his loss to Ogre. Empress, take the lead in this matter. But it is absolutely impossible. For this reason, let the Whitebeard pirates go all out to fight with the Navy. Therefore, in most cases, the friction between the Navy and the Whitebeard pirates, it is also within the controllable range. And, as time goes by, the pirates in the New World have discovered that the Navy seems to have infiltrated out of the territory of the Whitebeard pirates. Occasionally, deep in the New World, he saw the Navy's fleet galloping. After Orgrim learned the news, he also understood that it was Newgate's attitude that was changing. If he wanted to, the Navy would not be able to enter the depths of the New World without starting a war. But for Orgrim didn't force this kind of thing, he just smiled. This is good, so that the pirates in the depths of the New World know that the Navy is squeezing their living space, and only the Whitebeard pirates can. We can't do it as a group. We need everyone to work together. A few months later, time quietly came to the end of 1519 in the Highwind calendar. A turbulent era was brewing. But the people on the sea didn't really notice. Most people believe that the time of peace may continue to extend. Eternal night. See Avalon. In Orgrim's courtyard, Orgrim was holding scissors and following Queen Stacy, trimming the weeds with her. Hancock was humming and squeezing juice around the house. Robin was sitting on a chair not far away, reading with a book in his hand. In the yard, it looks like a peaceful everyday life. However, the little guys who used to hang out here are all gone now. Andre and the others should have arrived at the North Sea, right? Orgrim suddenly asked. Queen Stacy paused for a moment, then said, counting the time, "It's almost time." Yes, Andrest and his group have already gone to sea, together with Nami and Ace. Orgrim thought they would start messing around in the New World. But Andrest and Yamato agreed that they wanted to re-enter the Grand Line and enter the New World on their own. This made Orgrim a little funny, but in the end, it did not stop them. Andrest and others finally chose the North Sea as the place where adventure set sail. So, after traveling thousands of miles, I ran back to the North Sea. It was really energetic, and everyone in the group was in high spirits. Orgrim couldn't help but smile and said, "When you went to sea, weren't you very excited?" Stussy asked. After Orgrim cut off a branch, there was a trace of reminiscence in his eyes, and then he shook his head and said, "It's more of fear. I was hesitating back and forth with Beckman. It took a long time, almost half a year to go up. As for the idea, we had it a few years ago, but in the end, it was the corrupt elements in the Navy who helped us make up our minds. That era was different from today. Moreover, the environments and identities of Orgrim, Andrest, and others are also different. When Orgrim and Beckman went to sea, there were elements of adventure and ambition, but the most fundamental thing was to survive. As for Andrest, these second-generation players, their fundamental factor may be that they want to prove themselves. Prove that they are no worse than their parents. Bihai has also had a few rookies come out recently, and they seem to be quite good." Robin, who was wearing flat glasses, suddenly said. Orgrim asked curiously, "Who is it?" "There are two who stand out the most. One is called Hawkins and the other is Drake. They are the most anticipated among the rookies in Bihai in recent years. I don't know if I learned from you. They both debuted at the same time. They destroyed 2 naval bases first," Robin responded with a smile. "You know this as well," Orgrim said with some surprise. Of course he was impressed by Hawkins and Drake. Hawkins is mysterious. As for Drake, it's no surprise that he should be an undercover agent of the Navy. Sure enough, Waring states, this guy really can't take any time off. Recently, Marineford has become more and more mysterious, and a lot of information has been blocked. Orgrim felt that the navy had already begun preparations for war. Of course, there is nothing surprising about this. After all, the Warhammer pirates have been preparing for war. However, Orgrim estimated that at this time, it should not break out so early. The Navy's deployment in the New World has not yet been implemented. Not long ago, the Navy headquarters announced that it will move the headquarters to the New World. This matter also caused an uproar. If so, the war will probably last for some time. I hope that before that, Doflamingo can find the dark fruit, and Orgrim can take the initiative in his own hands. That's right, whatever the warring states Marshal or Orgrim planned, in the final analysis, they all wanted to seize the initiative in the early stages of the war. Only in this way can we sit firmly on the Diaotai. Just as Orgrim was thinking about these miscellaneous things, Robin said with a smile, of course, after André and the others decided to go to the North Sea, I told Mr. Plank that I would ask him to collect them for me. What about the news about Bihai? Look, Robin is more caring than you, a father. Stussy taught him a lesson. Orgrim. Are you making the wrong comparison? You should be comparing it to a mother like you, right? What is this? The evil person complained first. Just when Orgrim was hesitant to refute, what is the price of rebuttal? Will he be force-fed by Stussy? Plank's figure walked in from outside the courtyard. Master Chui, are you free? Ganglank raised his eyebrows and said. After hearing this, Orgrim turned to look at Gangplank, beckoned and said, well, there's nothing wrong for the time being. What's wrong? I have some news to report to you. Gangplank smiled, and then, before Orgrim could speak, he continued. Crocodile drove Edward Weibel out of the New World. Edward Weibel, rumored to be Whitebeard's biological son, was awarded the title of King Shishibukai by the Navy. Previously, the relationship with Crocodile should be regarded as colleagues. However, Crocodile abandoned the Shishibukai organization, entered the New World, and started his journey to pursue the dream of the Four Emperors. Weibel, who had also been in the New World before, was one of the many silver medal players. His mother, Bajin, was quite smart and had never provoked the Warhammer pirates or Orgrim in the New World. Therefore, both sides can be considered to be in peace. Previously, Crocodile's Alabasta was located in the New World, and he had been facing challenges from many silver medal players in the New World. Weibel is considered a very important representative figure. Now, Crocodile has finally driven this guy out of the New World, proving his strength. In this case, the turmoil and trouble on his side should stop, right? Orgrim took out a cigar from his pocket, lit it, and blew out a stream of smoke. This is theoretically true. At present, the chaos in Alabasta is gradually dissipating, and Crocodile's prestige in the New World has been established. At this moment, as long as no one causes trouble, he should be renamed the Four Emperors in the next few days. Gangplank said. Again, with one of the Four Emperors missing, Crocodile doesn't need to defeat Orgrim, Kaido, Whitebeard, and others if he wants to be the Emperor. He just wants to be the Fourth Emperor. He needs to prove in the New World that after Orgrim and the other three, he, Crocodile, can be ranked fourth. It is natural that he can be the Four Emperors. What's more, Charlotte Lingling's downfall was originally related to him. Inextricably linked. No matter what the means, he also has achievements in this area. Now, he has completed the challenge from the New World silver medalists and climbed to the top of the Yonko. It is reasonable and reasonable. No one can find a thorn in his side. It's nothing more than making fun of him, saying that he is the weakest Yonko or something like that. But so what? The weakest Yonko, isn't he also a Yonko? Pay attention to this guy and see if he swells up, Orgrim thought for a while and said. Although I think Crocodile wouldn't be so stupid, who knows? Just be prepared, just keep an eye on it first before talking about it. Clearplank nodded, and then said also, Enel's ship will be arriving soon.